One of the things that people often ask is about copywriting your songs, and although it's difficult, there's that. Most of you will have heard about the idea of posting the songs to yourselves in an envelope. Well, the MU actually has a vault where you can, to save you posting songs to yourself, they give you a CDR which they then keep time-stamped, so then you know when it was recorded. Services like that which I sort of heard about by doing seminars with the musicians union, which sound like a pretty useful.
Did you know about that, Jen?
Yes. The vault's in London.
Say you're a well-known artist and you have a well-known song that's out there and it's getting played constantly, but like another artist will cover it and say Radio 1 Live Lounge, who would be entitled to what and say that the song actually caught on? Like I know Amy Winehouse's done it for the Zootons, like the Valerie song actually caught on. I'm not sure she distributed it. Who would be entitled to what there in that case?
The writer. Yeah. The writer of the song is the person that gets paid.
All of it, like?
Yeah.
Well, the performer.
No, but that's where we come in. We would collect for Amy Winehouse, right? These guys would collect for the Zootons because they wrote the song. Yeah. We collect for her performance, and we collect for her and all the session players. So Mark Ronson's band. We collect for them. Right. So I mean, a really good example. If you think a couple of years ago when Kylie did "Can't Get It Out of My Head," right? She didn't write it. It was written by Rob Davis and Kathy Dennis. So PRS will collect for them. Right. We collect for Kylie and for EMI Records, her record label. That's the difference. It's quite hard for people to understand because it's called a mechanical copyright. And it's, I can explain because I'm old, right? Because I remember when it was mechanical. What happened, I can't remember quite back this far, but what used to happen was when songs were in their infancy, before machines were invented to record songs, the way a songwriter would get money was when they sold sheet music, for people to play. Then, of course, they started inventing things like player pianos. So you didn't actually have to sell the sheet music. You'd sell... Basically, the piano was a machine that was playing the music. That's in the early stages. At that point, they invented what's called a mechanical copyright. So that copyright was introduced for when the music was being played in mechanical form. Any machine that could play the music. Every time the music was sold in a form where it could be mechanically reproduced, a copyright was payable. So then, of course, phonograms came, records. That, again, was something that could be mechanically reproduced by a machine. So every time a record was made, a mechanical copyright was charged, right, for every record sold. And it's like 8.25%, ended up at 8.25% of the dealer price of the record, right? So if a CD was manufactured, every CD that was manufactured, the songwriters were owed a mechanical license because their song was being put into a form where it could be mechanically reproduced. And that's what MCPS collect on behalf of the songwriters, the mechanical copyright. That's why it's called the Mechanical Copyright Protection Society.
So for example, a download, iTunes, if your songs are available on iTunes, then you could join MCPS and collect a mechanical for every download. Now, I mean, it costs you £50 to join MCPS, and I think a download would generate you roughly 6 pence. So you're going to have quite a considerable amount of downloads to be worthwhile. But it is something, Apple are actually making money from the downloading of your music, so therefore you're entitled to mechanical right for that. As would, for example, if you went into Radio Foil and did a live session, they are actually making a recording of your songs. So what would happen there is you would get a mechanical royalty if you were an MCPS member for the fact that your BBC Foil pressed play record and recorded your session. Then say 2 weeks later it was broadcast, the PRS royalty would kick in for the public performance of that song on radio. So you get 2 bites at the cherry as a writer over and above any artist rights you've got.
I had a question about songwriting splits. I run a record label, and so we don't necessarily get involved with that, but for small bands, there generally tends to be a key writer of the songs.
Bear with me, because this sounds like I'm going off at a total tangent. You buy a flat today, that flat is yours. The legal ownership is the person who buys that flat. Your name is on the title deeds. Now, you may bring in interior decorators, you may bring in landscape gardeners to embellish what you've already got, to add value to it, and they will be paid for their work, and they will benefit from the payment that you give them for that work to make that property higher value. It doesn't put their name in the title deeds. They're not owners. All they are is somebody who's contributed towards making that better. They've been paid for their work, and at the end of the day, the owner remains the owner, no matter what it is, a piece of property, no matter if it's a chair, a car, a flat, a song, it is that person's property.
Another thing about band agreements is that everyone in the band has to be a member of the union for you to get the band agreement, because it's about 5 days work for a lawyer to do a band agreement, so they do insist that everyone's a member, everyone in the band's a member of the union to get the band agreement.
If you can get all this paperwork out of the way early on, just park it, put it in a drawer and it's gone, and get on and concentrate with writing, recording and playing live. The hope is that this will never, it never comes back to haunt you. That's the real issue. Like I've seen bands over the years split up over this type of stuff, and people come back and then trying to re-reissue songs. Actually, what we meant to say was this is the way we want it split, and that might be possible to do if everyone's in agreement on that and agree to take a lesser cut. Not always possible if you're not talking to the person that was originally in your band.
And remember, it's not just about writing. The band agreement's really important because, for instance, let me give you a scenario so you understand what I'm talking about. Supposing you have a band and they get a deal. It's quite a big deal. The first thing that people want to do is go off and buy gear. Like new drums, new keyboards, new guitars. So then you buy all that, then the drummer leaves. Who owns the drums?
The band does.
But why should they actually own the drums? I mean, the drummer was part of the band at the time. If you have no band agreement, and he bought the gear.
We're actually talking about this at the minute.
Yeah.
Although we're not really in a position for people to be buying out, but my sort of suggestion was that they would then pay 3/4 back.
Well, now's the time when you're not in a position to do the agreement.
Right.
Automatically, as a band, it comes under a partnership law. So when you get a band agreement, what you're really getting is a partnership agreement, which any business gets. So without a band agreement, everything is 25% each. There's 4 of you, because that's the law. So if you don't get a band agreement to write down exactly how you do want things to be split, it falls into partnership law, which is equal. So that means if they spend a lot of money and write it up under the band, and then they don't pay the money back, you need to pay back 25% of it.
It also means should the band break up, you can't take the name with you.
Yeah.
It's a partnership.
So it's actually quite dangerous to go about, at a certain level without a band agreement.
One up here.
I was wondering about, are you fully covered with your royalties if you put your stuff straight on Facebook or MySpace, or does MySpace only, or what's the sort of goes on there? Would that count as you having your song registered, so if someone ripped you off, you could say, well, I've had it on Facebook first, or?
Again, what Keith said, it goes towards evidence. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's really proving of a song's existence before somebody else. If somebody can come out the woodwork and prove they knew of it 2 days before you can, the weight of evidence is in their favour. And it is about proving you knew of a song's existence as at a certain date.
When MySpace first started, their terms and conditions did say that they owned your work if you put it up there. But they changed it. I mean, largely under pressure from Billy Bragg and others. They did actually change that. But their original terms and conditions said that anything you put on MySpace was their property.
It wasn't designed that they wanted your music and to use it for something else. It was really designed the fact that they could then sell on that site with all the content without any sort of restrictions on behalf of the creators, and that was really...
Yeah, but it did actually say
yeah. And I think you bring up an important topic in terms of just the whole notion of copyright and, your intellectual property rights, and when you create a song and what that's worth to you now and in the future. Like, worldwide, the pressures on copyright, to be eliminated. You've got the Googles of this world and major corporations who want all this content that you create but don't really want to pay for it, or if they do pay for it, they want to pay practically nothing for it. And artists feel pressurized in many cases to give it away for free. At every opportunity to give away for free, and that feeds into these major organisations who benefit from that.
If you look at that Radiohead situation, they gave the music away for free, but they had a brand new album to release, and they didn't do... Did anybody see an ad for the Radiohead album?
Pay what you think or something?
Did anybody see any advertisements, any billboards or banners? Or why not? Because they got about £2 million of free publicity.
Editorial,
Yeah, and that's That's why it made sense.
If you're saying I'll do gigs in pubs for nothing and I'll give music away to the blogs for nothing and I won't, your music is actually effectively worth nothing. To then try and break out of that and value your music, unless you do get, say, a fairly substantial deal or something, if you're still just working away in Derry or wherever you are, gigging away, it's difficult to then turn around to the same pub 3 months later and say, you know what, suddenly I think we should get 120 quid to play this, but I play to you for nothing, we'll just get somebody else, and it does devalue your music and also those around you, the other bands who are trying to get gigs in the same pub or who are trying to get your music out there on radio or whatever, and it's just a perception thing as well as an actual value thing. It makes it more difficult for you to be perceived as professional and actually going somewhere in it as a career.
I was talking to a college in Tottenham last week, and the kids were saying, well, what do you mean? I said, well, think about it. There's two things I'd say to you about it. First of all is, actually, you're not giving your music away for free. You're actually paying somebody to take it away. Because it costs you something to make. I don't care, even if it's the electricity it cost to generate the computer, it actually did cost you something to make it. So if you're giving it away for free, you're actually paying people to take your music away. What kind of a message does that send out? And secondly, think about it. Last time you were out on the street and you saw somebody busking, were people giving them money? Well, if their music's worth something, how come your music's worth nothing? It's a fallacy that music has to be given away for free. It doesn't.
Would you extend your advice to sonic bids?
Well, I think I don't think the musicians union itself has an opinion, kind of standpoint on sonic bids, but I think it's quite a lot of money to outlay, for a lot of the smaller bands who just think, oh, I need this, I better get it, and pay the money for it.
South by Southwest, and they wanted 40 pounds up front.
I mean, these music conventions and these music showcases, with the best will in the world, only work for you if you work your arse off. There is no point in just thinking, oh yeah, I've been showcased and turning up.
Sure.
I'm so aware of loads of our members from Northern Ireland or from Scotland who go to South West and they play to a room full of people from Northern Ireland or Scotland because they've not actually done the legwork. You need to really work and work and work. And it's almost like it's just a starting point. You need to be very, very motivated, very, very self-motivated once you get out to these conferences, no matter how big or how small, otherwise it's just another gig.
Another thing you should consider is doing festivals closer to home, so do a showcase event in Germany and get a Ryanair flight or an EasyJet flight, no £1,000 visa, just across the water, so again...
And less people are doing it.
And less people are doing it. So don't always...
And they're very valuable territories, I quite agree, Jen.
And it's just worth thinking, what festivals are there in France that we could maybe do, or, that kind of thing. Yeah. Instead of because South by Southwest advertise a lot, so everyone just thinks South by Southwest. But actually there's loads more things going on.
A friend of mine has literally just come back from playing a festival in Norway 2 weeks ago. And she also played a festival in Germany in the summer. Now she's probably, I don't know, I'm guessing she's maybe at a similar level to you. She's sort of played Tea in the Parks, that sort of level of festival this year and last year. And the fees were like sort of 50 quid, 100 quid in Scotland for a Scottish band who's relatively happening in Scotland. The fee they got in Norway, after tax and after the agent's booking, was £1,000 for a half-hour set. Well, the fee they got in Germany was £750. They also sold €800 worth of merchandise at the German gig. They couldn't do that after a 2-week tour in Scotland, from their own country where they're well known. And yet they were getting that, just as their first ever appearance in those two countries.
In Denmark, there's a minimum level.
Yeah.
Bands have to be paid a minimum amount to do the gigs, and it's significant.
Plus the back-end royalties that we would collect are quite high as well from those territories. And you would see the royalties, whereas you play the States, you see practically nothing from live performance. In fact, I can tell you, you see nothing from live performance in the States, unless you're in the top 200 grossing tours. You'll see absolutely nothing. You'll see. It's Europe. Don't discount it.